Hello again, everybody. With the Hall of Famer John Dodds and our marvelous producer Jason Ruck, I'm Tom Pippins. Welcome to another edition of the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show. As always, we are brought to you by Moonlight Graham. Modern dental benefits. Moonlight Graham, a proud sponsor of the program. Craig Caston is our MVP. We appreciate him. Kevin Byrne, another great get by you. We have an entire show to talk about as it relates to his experiences in the NFL all the way to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. You will love this man. Kevin, oh, by the way, you're going into the Hall of Fame, NFL. Marvelous career at Marquette. Then, we're talking the old St. Louis football Cardinals. We're talking Trans World Airlines and a phone call and the Browns in Baltimore. Please take us anywhere you want to go.
Well, it was a great experience. I left the St. Louis football Cardinals. Frankly, they weren't a good franchise. And I went to TWA, which happened to be based in St. Louis, as their national headquarters, as director of public affairs, and enjoyed it there. And then I had the chance to go back to my hometown, which is Cleveland, when Al McGuire called me. When Art Modell called me. But Dan Dierdorf, remember Dan Dierdorf from Monday Night Football?
No, we sure do.
Player.
One of our favorites.
So Dan is a close friend, and he was one of our studs for the St. Louis Cardinals. We're both from Northeast Ohio, so he would call me when I was at TWA, and my assistant at TWA knew nothing about sports, and so she would come in and say, "Jim Brown's on the phone for us." And so I'd pick up, "Hey, Jim." Or she'd come in and she goes, Otto Graham's on the phone. Hey, Otto. And it was always Dan Dierdorf. So she comes in one day and she goes, Art Modell's on the phone for you, owner of the Cleveland Browns. She says, Art Modell. I go, yeah, Art, what can I do for you? And this woman goes, pardon me? And I go, pardon me? I said, where's Dan? And she goes, Dan? She goes, my name is Marilyn McGrath, and I'm calling on behalf of Art Modell. Could you hold for him? And I said, is this really Art Modell calling me? And she goes, yes. And I go, God, I hope you have a sense of humor. And she goes, I think you're going to find out.
Oh.
So it was Art calling me to ask me if I would be interested in coming back to the NFL, going to my hometown to work for the Browns, which, boy, I was head over heels with that opportunity. And it got me in a long run with the same franchise. Unfortunately, we had to move during that time to Baltimore. And I survived an ownership change when Art Modell sold the franchise to Steve Bisciotti. And we lived happily ever after.
That whole issue of the...
I'll tell you what.
Yeah, please.
We got to work with some fascinating people through the years, with coaches like Brian Billick and John Harbaugh, players like Ray Lewis and Ed Reed, and some of the best players in NFL history. Won 2 Super Bowls at Baltimore. Was involved in 2 of the greatest games ever. Unfortunately, both losses for the Cleveland Browns. The famous drive game by John Elway, where he comes into Cleveland Stadium and does that fantastic drive that kept us from the Super Bowl. And the following year, we go out to Denver for the AFC Championship, thinking we can go back and go to the Super Bowl this time. And that's unfortunately the Ernest Biner fumble game, game known as the fumble. And so in back-to-back years, had our hearts broken and with the hard luck Browns, and in many ways the hard luck Cleveland sports story, until LeBron came in there and gave him a championship a few years ago.
I interviewed Ron Wolf in 2005 after his retirement from Green Bay. It was out in California in Oxnard. It was at the Cowboys camp. Bill Parcells had asked him to come and kind of look at some of the players. And I asked him, what your top 5 regrets as a Packer GM? And he said, well, I can tell you one of them right away. It was the 1996 draft. We're sitting at 26, and I'm all full of myself. I'm looking at this Ray Lewis. He's coming out of Miami, and boy, we're going to take him at 26. And I'm looking, and he had this formula where he would figure out what other teams would do and what the probabilities would be. And All of a sudden, Baltimore takes him, I'd say 24, just before 25. And he said, I've never been more surprised or disappointed in myself. I wanted this guy. I thought he was going to be great. And I learned you got to trade up and be proactive. And I thought, wow, Ray Lewis could have been a Green Bay Packer.
How about that? I believe Ray is the best defensive player ever because he played middle linebacker and could run so well. If you think of Lawrence Taylor or Reggie White, you could run away from them. You could move your offense away from them because they were on one side of the field. But with Ray playing in the middle, you couldn't. Literally, teams for years wouldn't throw screen passes against the Ravens because Ray would just be there, in time to either knock it down or make the tackle. Another fascinating human being went through an awful situation with the Atlantic prosecutor, and sad. An early example to me how blacks in America were treated unfairly for the longest time and it seems in some cases by the police departments and prosecutors. But anyway, I had a chance to work with just some great people. You find, and Pip, I know you know this, you find that, a lot of these great coaches and great athletes are also great people and have great humility and are fascinating in other ways. Certainly there are bad apples, but most of them are so interesting and usually really good people.
What I think is fascinating is that in some ways you had to reinvent yourself, right, Kevin? We remember the typewriter days, and then you get into computers, and then you got the social. You part of all of that. I'm saying to myself, imagine what Kevin might have had to go through if this present era had been the era back in the day with Al. But you did. You had to make major adjustments, and obviously you did it gracefully.
Yes. And then I used to hold this up in front of the players, and I would say, guys, every person in the United States is a reporter now. That's how you have to live your life. My wife and I can go to the restaurant, and if I turn around and tell the person behind me to shut up because I'm trying to have a nice evening with my wife, it's not going to be taped by somebody. But if you do that, you're going to be on ESPN within 15 minutes. So you have to live your life more carefully than us ordinary folks, because the phone and the video camera from the phone and the picture ability has just changed the life of celebrity everywhere around the world.
That's great counsel. What we were talking before about being a SID in college and or public relations director in the NFL, it seems like, at least my observation, especially at a college level, is to be successful as a coach, you have to be tightly wound. You have to be recruiting. You have pressures. You're recruiting 365, and you're a control freak. And it seemed to me that there's a lot of tension between coaches and sports information directors, because sports information directors are the bridge to the media that the coach can't control. This is something out there. I don't want to do this. And they're taking it out on the SIT is kind of low-hanging fruit.
Right. I would agree with that. You do sometimes have to be the punching bag, but it's better that John Harbaugh come after me rather than do that publicly, right? Because he's representing. So at least he can vent. I remember John Harbaugh and I had it out one day over something, and we're both pretty feisty, and we went at it hard. This is like 7:00 at night, and I left his office, and I'm shook. I've never had a contract. And he had just signed a new contract, and he called me as I'm driving home. He goes, "Isn't it great that we can talk to each other that way and still be the best of friends?" And my heart was still pounding from the conversation. I said, "Yeah, it's great, Coach." But I said, I'm going to be honest with you. You have a contract, I don't. I mean, it could go the other way. You could say, I'm not working with that guy anymore. And I'd be adios. He goes, oh, that would never happen, Kevin. And don't you ever not yell back at me. And I go, no, that won't be a problem. I don't think.
John just seems. Yes, please.
John is a great person.
I was going to say, yep.
Deeply, deeply religious. His faith is very important to him. And John's he's fun too. So you could have fun with him. But as John indicated, the tension for coaches, and John Harbaugh, for example, grew up in a coaching family. So he moved a couple of times because his dad had to move. And they have great insecurity. Brian Billick, who won the Super Bowl with us in Baltimore, and he's one of my closest friends. And when I would try to settle Brian down, and I said, Brian, look at your situation. You got a great situation. Look at the house you live in. Let's just win the next game. And he would look at me and goes, yeah, it's easy for you to say, Kevin, because you know what? You're still here. And Ted Marchibroda's not here. And Bill Belichick's not here, because I worked with Bill Belichick for 5 years with the Cleveland Browns as our head coach. By the way, we didn't have Tom Brady, so we didn't win. And he goes, but I see you're still here. I see Ozzie Newsome's still here. I see the team president is still here. He said, so were you telling me to calm down? That's easy for you to say, but I have to live my life knowing that I'm games away or a season away from getting fired, because that's what happens to coaches. And so at that point, it's not a time to remind them about the goodness of what they've achieved with their becoming a head coach. But then you go, I completely understand, Coach. That's a reason why I didn't go into that end of the business. That insecurity would have driven me crazy, and I respect that, and I think respecting that on a regular basis, to let them vent every now and then, but also to help them celebrate, big victories or big seasons. So when they're down in the dumps because we've lost the AFC Championship at New England to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, and John is feeling so bad, to go in with him the next morning and just say, Coach, you were spectacular this year. Think about what we overcame to get there. Think about what you did to take this team to the highest level. And in the end, they had a quarterback who made one more play than our guy. That's what the difference was. But you were fantastic. And so I viewed that as part of the responsibility to bring people back, so to speak, after difficult circumstances. To go to Ernest Biner after the fumble and say, Ernest, boy, you're going to have to deal with it. But if anybody can deal with it, you can deal with it, because I know you're such a strong, tough guy. And so you do that. But that's part of what you're being paid to do, and part of who you are too.
Mm-hmm. It's evident that you're a Hall of Famer because you have the talent in the business, but also the type of man you are. It gets back to the trust we talked about. Here you're an encourager, you're a confidant. Well, you can talk with a Billick or a Harbaugh on that level. That doesn't too often happen, does it?
No, I always thought, and John Harbaugh and Brian Billick would probably be disappointed to hear this, but you have to make the head coach your best friend in some way. And it was difficult, for example, for 5 years with Bill Belichick, because he's a loner guy. He likes to be left alone. He doesn't look for encouragement. He doesn't look for sympathy. And but they've got to trust you. We win the championship with Marquette, and everybody knows Al McGuire is crying on the bench and then leaves. Well, he leaves, and first of all, reporters are on deadline. And so I had snuck behind the bench because I needed Al, because NBC wanted to get an interview with him. I think it was NBC, right, John, who ran the telecast?
Yep.
So they wanted to get him on right away. And we were butting up to 11 o'clock. And what networks didn't do in those days, they didn't push back local news, because local news, Tom, made a lot of money for TV stations.
Yes, sir.
So Al gets up to leave, and I'm going, Coach, hey, Al. No. no. And all of a sudden, this big Smokey the Bear, big hat on, security police guy who's been with us for a couple of days. He's between me and Al, and I got Roger James from the Milwaukee Journal and Curry Kirkpatrick from Sports Illustrated, among others behind me, but those two are in my ear. And I remember Curry Kirkpatrick saying, "Tell that maniac to stop. I'm on deadline. They're holding the magazine for me. I got to get him now." Roger James said, "He can't screw me now. I'm done." So
Roger, one of the nicest guys ever.
yeah, I'm thinking, the NBC folks, what are they thinking? And there's going to be a trophy presentation. And so anyway, he gets to the locker room, and the guy unlocks it, and then the big state trooper, he goes in, and then I try to go in, and he gives me a little shove saying, "No." And he closed the door and locks it. And now I'm with Curry and Roger and other people yelling. The NBC guy, he's apoplectic. He's going, "What are you doing to us? We paid for this." And so I don't know what to do. The door opens a little crack, and there's the state trooper. He goes, "Is there a Kevin out there?" And I go, "I'm Kevin. I met you 2 days ago." So I come in there, and there's Al McGuire. And this is a story a lot of people don't know. After the championship, there's a stack of piles like all locker rooms have, where the players go and grab a towel and go in the shower. And Al walks over to the stack of piles, and he puts his hand under about 10 of them and lifts the towels, and he begins pacing back and forth in the room. I said, "Coach, you got to go. I have the trophy presentation. NBC's waiting for you." He goes, "I'm done. I'm finished. My coaching career is over." And he then begins crying hard, bawling, puts his head in the pillow, and I'm going, "Coach, you have to go back. NBC is going off the air. They need one question with you. You have Curry Kirkpatrick and Roger James and other reporters. You can talk to them on your way back to the floor. The trophy presentation." And he's sobbing. He's sobbing. He puts the towels back in the pile, and I'm thinking, somebody better take that top towel away. But anyway, so he looks over at me and he goes, "It's not often a kid from the street touches the silk lace." And, I know where Al came from. I know his life story. I know his working in the bar with his dad and mom. I mean, just wow. But then he kind of collects himself. I said, "Coach, NBC's done. They're off the air. So they'll probably want to tape something with you. But they're setting up for the trophy presentation. You got to go back for the trophy presentation." He goes, No, I'm serious. I'm done. This is my last game. Marquette's got to move on. They're going to move on without me. And so tell Hank to take the trophy." I said, "Hank can't take the trophy. You have to take the trophy. Tell Bo. Go tell Bo to take the trophy." And I said, "Coach, come on." I said, "Your family's out there. Pat's out there. Your kids are out there. Your former players out there. They want to see you with the trophy. You need to go back out there." And he smiled and he says, "Okay, I'll go." So he goes back out there. Now we're like a week later, a couple weeks later. He calls me to his office. And he's got trophies from throughout his career, and they were in a closet. They weren't displayed in his office. He's in the closet, and he's prying off the little nameplate on the trophy. And he's got this huge NCAA Coach of the Year trophy. And he's taking the name off. And he goes, "Here, you should have this trophy. You should have this trophy. You worked hard. You take this trophy." I said, "I'm not taking this trophy, Coach. I'm not a coach. I'm not a player." He goes, "Well, take the trophy. I got the plaque. I got the little thing. I don't need the big trophy. Find Bo. Give it to Bo. Give it to Bo." I mean, holy cow.
Yes.
his mind worked in different ways.
And you just had some incredible accomplishments in your career. I'm thinking that stroke of genius to get Al out for the trophy presentation. I mean, an entire America wouldn't have experienced Al if not for Kevin Byrne.
I'm thinking, what can I say next? The family got him. I got him with the family.
Yeah. We could talk forever and a day, and I'm thinking to myself, John, I want to listen to Kevin speak. Well, we've been blessed to have that here on this show. We must talk about your upcoming entry into the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio, on the doorstep where you grew up. Golly, first reaction when you got that call, that news, Kevin?
Well, it's funny. The Brian Billick, the former Ravens coach who we won a Super Bowl with, and his wife were at my home, and I had this call. I'm on a Hall of Fame committee, and so the chair from the Hall of Fame said, "Here are the new people going into the Hall of Fame," and he says my name. And there's another guy on the committee whom I'm very close to, and so I'm touched by this. And I'm up doing a Zoom upstairs in my home, and Ryan Billick and his wife Kim and my wife are downstairs. They just know I'm on a conference call, and so they said to my friend who's also on the committee, "Charlie, could you call Kevin and let him know that he's into the Hall of Fame?" And Charlie laughs. He says, "I'll be delighted to do that." And I said, "Charlie, could you do me a favor?" I said, "Could you call Sally?" And because Brian Billick and Kim are downstairs, and that would be a treat, I think. So the conference call continues, and then I hear Sally's phone downstairs, and then I hear her go, "Oh," and excitedly, and then I hear her tell Brian and Kim, and I hear them clapping, and so that was a very cool and humbling moment. But what the NFL has done is they just started this. Is they're recognizing some folks with they're calling awards of excellence, and your name is inducted into the Hall of Fame. Beyond the normal thing that people see, Brett Favre. And Bart Starr and all those great Packers got. We don't get the gold jacket or the bust, but our names are put into the Hall of Fame. There's a display, and I'm very proud of that. The fact that I'm from the Cleveland area in Canton, Ohio, where it is outstanding. And there are still some cousins of mine who haven't spoken to me since I left the Cleveland Browns to go with Art Modell to become the Baltimore Ravens. So
That's another
I'm glad that this is. You see, I did all right in business here, and I had to make a business decision there, as Al would say. So I'm very, very excited about it. My family is very excited, and I'm looking forward to it. Thank you.
I have just one more, and then I want to close out with you and John. A quote from Kevin Byrne: "The job is addictive, it's intense, and it's alluring. I will miss so much the people involved, the games, the bus rides, the locker room, and all of that." As you look back on this Hall of Fame career, you're a relationship guy. That's what's so lovable about you. I trust that that's what you will remember most. The people, you've got the Super Bowls, you got the championship at Marquette. All of that is amazing, but it's the people, isn't it, Kevin?
It is all about the people. I think life is about relationships. No matter where you are, where you work, your family, it's all about building relationships and strengthening relationships. And to be in a business that's been public, that people know about, there's a fun aspect to that. There's a certain pressure that comes from it. And as you guys know, there are a lot of hours involved. It's not the greatest paying profession in the world. But when you look back and you think of the outstanding moments and the nervous moments and the sad moments, I think everybody has those. But a lot of the ones that I've had, people know about it. And that's made it more fun, to be honest. And so I'm grateful for my career, which really got started as a student at Marquette, and encouragement from professors and counselors there, and I owe a lot to the university. And then to go back there and work with the great Al McGuire. But I probably, guys, tell like an Al McGuire at least once every 3 weeks to somebody. Something will be triggered that will stimulate. And, so in fact, one guy I played golf with, he goes, and he's an Illinois grad, and he was a dentist in Chicago. We got matched up recently. He goes, "Oh, good. I hope you have some more Al McGuire stories for me."
Yeah, we got to get into to text those stories to you when one comes up. Text to Dodsey if you don't mind.
Yeah, I'll give one more. You have time for one more?
Sure, we've got as much time as you have, sir.
No, I'll do. So, in talking about the guy from Chicago, I told him this story recently. Al is a treasure, and Dick Enberg literally loved Al, in as much as two men can love each other, and of course wrote the play. But anyway, we were playing DePaul, and we had beaten, John, you'll remember those days, we had beaten DePaul maybe 26, 24, 23 times in a row. I forgot what it was. Now we're going down there, and they're good. They have a good team. They're ranked in the country. They've got us in that little gym instead of downtown. And Joey Meyer is Ray Meyer's assistant. And so Al would stand up and go, "Ohio State, run Ohio State." And Joey Meyer would jump up with a big piece of whiteboard with a number on it and go, "That's number 3. That's number 3." And so then Al looks over there, and Al gets up later on and goes, "Run UCLA, run UCLA." And Joey Meyer jumps up with a big board with the number 2 on it. "Number 2, number 2." So we're up at halftime, maybe 5 points or so, and we come out for the start of the second half, and Al stands up and he goes, "Run UCLA, UCLA. For you DePaul players, that's number 2.
Kevin Byrne and John, we want to talk a little bit about your website. I don't want to get away without your chatting about it because it's a good one.
Absolutely. Thank you. Sure. MarquetteHoops.com is the site. We archive if you go to the top left-hand corner in that column, you can see where the archive of the shows are, this show and other shows. If you want to be on our newsletter, it's the top right-hand corner. Just drop your email address in there. Be kept abreast of updates, including Marquette player transactions, that type of thing, and upcoming guests.
Kevin Byrne, brought to you by Moonlight Graham, a proud sponsor of the MarquetteHoops.com basketball show. Moonlight Graham, modern dental benefits. For John Dodds, our producer, Jason Ruck, I'm Tom Pippins. Thanks for being with us, everybody. See you again soon, and go Golden Eagles. God bless.